Hey guys, what's going on? Today I want to go over how to make some soapstone capstones for the board game Tack. Now, the best way that I've found to get my soapstone that I make for these comes in about the right size. It's going to be to go on Amazon, get yourself a kind of a kit. I think they call it a stamp making kit, soapstone stamp making, but I'll leave a link in the description so you can find it. It'll come with 5, 6 of these pieces of soapstone, varying sizes, colors, kind of a grab bag as to what you'll get. But it'll also come with a simple little metal chisel. And this one's seen some use and abuse, but since it is just a simple piece of metal, you can take it to the bench grinder, you can take a hand file, put another tip on there, and be good to go. There's been some interest from you guys in seeing some of my more advanced projects, so this will probably be the last one of these kind of low tool, no tool, or very simple tool tack projects. So in the future, I'm going to try and do some videos where I use the lathe or my 3D printer, CNC, laser. We'll do some resin work. So some more advanced things to give the people what they want. So without further ado, let's get to work. And that was a lie because there is more ado. If I can find where I put it. I had a box. How hard is it to lose a box? Found it. A box. Maybe even the box that you got your soapstone in from Amazon. Not sponsored. One thing that you do need to be careful of when you are working with soapstone is it's going to make a lot of dust. And I'm just using a hand chisel, so the dust is going to be somewhat controlled. But if you're using a Dremel, any sort of power tool, you're going to look like you've been in the kitchen baking. I mean, you're going to have dust all the way up to your elbows, all over your shirt. And the main thing you want to do is keep it out of your lungs. So we're going to make probably the world's simplest dust box here, collection container for you. And hopefully keep you guys safe out there. Anytime you're working with this stuff, I do recommend wearing a respirator or a face shield, some combination of those. Whatever level of safety makes you feel comfortable is what you should do. But something to keep the dust under control. We're just going to make a dust collection box out of this box. So here we have our Amazon box, and I just went ahead and sealed it back up. I used painter's tape because it's what I had available. And over here, I just took the nozzle of the shop vac, traced around it, so we would know what size hole to cut for our shop vac. And then we're just going to take our chisel that was so wonderfully provided to us with the kit, and we're just going to start making holes in this thing. And then once your arms get tired or you feel like you have enough holes in there, you're going to cut out your circle for the nozzle. And if you don't have a box cutter on hand, you can just take your chisel again. Again, we're just using what we have around the shop and making it work. And you can come and cut that out. And then you just want to pop that out and test it. And now, when we hook the shop back up to it, all these little holes are going to pull our dust down in, and we will help keep our lungs safe, our workspace a little cleaner. I mean, as you can tell, my workspace could be a lot cleaner, but this will help with that. We'll test it out here. All right, I have my vacuum hooked up, and to simulate how this is going to work, I just went in the kitchen and got a little bit of flour. I mean, that's more flour than that entire stone kind of pulverized, but you'll get the idea. Let me turn on the suction here, and I'll show you how it works. So as your dust falls down, the small particles that you probably can't even see get sucked up. Larger ones will fall on the plate, and every once in a while you can sweep them into the larger holes. and it will clog up because we just made it with a very small chisel, but you can go back, you can add more holes, you can add bigger holes, but this is probably the world's simplest dust collection machine to keep your lungs and your workspace a little bit cleaner. So before you begin with your soapstone, what you want to do is determine what this is going to be. I mean, it's a nice looking block, and that could be a capstone, but we want to see what's inside of here and what's inside of our brains and kind of make those two come together. So I recommend you spend some time with your soapstone, take it out to dinner, cuddle with it, you know, see what kind of shape is lurking inside of here that you can bring to life. Because as any good sculptor knows, if I want this to be a monkey, all I have to do is remove all the parts of that stone that are not a monkey, and there we have it. I usually I'll take just a piece of scratch paper, or in this case, a Hallmark ornament box because it's almost Christmas time. And what you want to do is you want to draw out the faces that you have available on your scratch sheet of paper. So, we got four sides to this thing. We'll go around. We'll get us a rough idea of this. And then you can even do the top and bottom. This is just sketching. You can pull up references on if you want to have a laptop in here. Take it out before you start carving, otherwise you'll get dust all over it. But you can print off some images if that's easier for you. So if you want this to be a rabbit, a cat, a monkey, go onto Pinterest or whatever your preferred site is, Google Images, pull up those things and try and get an idea of proportions and what you want to do. So I'm going to go through here. I've got my faces, and so I know what kind of canvas I'm working with here. And then we're just going to kind of draw some shapes in here and doing it in pencil, of course, because I'm not an artist. You give me something physical to work with, and I can usually get it to what I want it to be. You give me a sheet of paper, it's going to come out as hot garbage. So I apologize to any of you artists out there that have to sit through this. But we're going to take some shapes, and we're just going to kind of say that it looks like crap. And of course, the eraser doesn't work, so don't know why I'm even using pencil. But we'll go through here. We'll add some shapes to our capstone. We'll maybe mirror it there. Maybe we can decide that this is going to be a groove here and a groove down there. And then maybe we want to round off the top on this side. Leave an angle or take it away. Let's take it away. Let's even curl our groove around that way, and then we'll just remove that part here. That terminates that way. So then maybe I want to take some down this way and even possibly remove that. Um, of course, you guys are going to be better than I am, and you're going to have a much more concrete idea of what you want to turn these stones into. But for just a demo, let's go with something like that and see what we end up with. So this is just going to be one face of that. The more complicated your 3D shape is going to be, the more you're going to use these other faces because you want to line up where that groove terminates on the face opposite it. So if this is this side, then I would draw this as this side. So I can start marking like where I want these to terminate, if I want it to be symmetrical or asymmetrical. You can kind of use this, and that'll help guide where you put your lines on your soapstone. One of the great things about carving anything is that underneath this face is another face. So if you screw up something here, you just go deeper. You end up with a little smaller capstone at the end, but you'll get that idea that you have in your head into reality. So don't be afraid to mess up, because everybody does it. All right. So now which color do we want to use with this? This has a nice gradient to it and speckling that I really like. So we're going to use this stone for this. Now, I've drawn it in pencil here, but the pencil really does not show up well at all on here. So what I like to do is take this chisel and just use it as a scribe. So we'll decide which face we want. Looks like the gradient kind of comes up this way on here, which somewhat matches these arcs that I want to add into that. So I'm just going to take this and start drawing my arcs coming down this way. And you're using your sheet as a reference here. And I'm going to have these arcs coming down this way. We're going to add our leg coming down to the bottom. And we're going to mark what we are absolutely getting rid of here. I'm just putting X's here. You can do whichever you would like just to notate what is going and what is staying. So that's our first face. And then if we come to this face here, we can see, we can look on our stone here and match it up, or we can use this as a reference. I've tried to stick somewhat to that. So we're just going to roughly draw where these are coming across. You can use a ruler if you want to be more precise. I tend to do my soapstone more organic. Of course, I'm usually doing organic shapes. I tend to do creatures on these, so cats, rabbits, dogs, owls, things like that. But we're just abstracting here. Also, if you're printing something out, you can just mirror it on whatever software you prefer and print it out that way. I'm just going to attempt to mirror it by hand, which, as we all know, is going to come out perfectly. And I can't even remember how that did on this side. So came up like this. We met here, came down that way. We left a little slice on the back. And all these lines are going to be removed, so it's not really imperative that you get everything right the first time. And then to match our leg here, it came down and kind of centered on the corner. And again, I'm just going to mark what's going to be absolutely removed on here, and then maybe what's just going to be rounded off. Then you would have the back of this. So this is going to be a 3D object. So if you just draw it on the surface, you're not really going to end up with a product that you want. So we do know that all of this is going. So all of this here is going to be removed. We're going to have a little leg down here at the bottom. All this is going to be removed up here at the top. And then it's going to kind of gradate in to meet up with this curve on that side. All right. So that is roughly how you would put something from your template here onto your soapstone. That way you can guide yourself as you start taking some of this out. Then you can leave your template there for reference. And then you just start going to town on the stone here. So your chisel should be nice and sharp. Soapstone is a fairly weak stone. So, I mean, you are just going to be cutting into this stuff kind of like butter. So you just want to take away all the parts that are not what you want to keep. You can either brace it against your workspace and kind of dig in and push down like this, rocking it back and forth, or you can work away from yourself. If you work towards your finger, you're going to slice your finger open, so please don't. And likewise, if you work towards yourself, just make sure your fingers are out of the way. There's no way that this tool is going to hit your body with it being out here at kind of half arm's length. So as long as you keep your fingers out of the way, you can get a little more kind of torque on that to help push those pieces out. And we're just going to go through here. We're going to whittle that down, and we're going to see what kind of takes shape here. As you can see, we've lost all of our color here, and that's just because the rough surface is not like the waxed surface that they send these out with. If you ever want to see what color this is underneath, just get it wet, take it inside, wash it off, have a little cup of water or a little spray bottle beside you, and you can wet that and you'll see the color underneath, and it should be that kind of nice dark red that we have here. And if you ever lose track of what you were going to do, just go back to your reference material, take a look, and get back on track or change your design. These are your capstones. Do whatever you want with them. It's never too late to change your mind on what you want this to be. I mean, you may end up with a capstone that's about this size at the end, but if it's exactly what you want, then you just build a set around that and you're good to go. And when you're working with sharp hand tools like this, you do want to make sure that they stay sharp. And if your hands start getting tired, you do want to take a break. As your grip kind of wanes when you're doing this longer and longer, you're more likely to slip up and cut yourself. So if your hands start getting tired, go do something else. Come back to it later. You guys ever seen the Shawshank Redemption? Yeah. So by the power of editing, I'm going to save you from rewatching part of that movie. All right. So we're getting kind of a rough shape here. I took my own advice, went and got some lunch, changed my shirt into something a little more appropriate for getting dirty in the shop. And then we got to decide kind of what we want to do here. I'm really liking this profile look on it. However, um, boring, right? A little more interest on the back from just the pecking kind of that the tool is made on it. But we're gonna have to decide what we want to do here. And a couple different options come to mind. One is we can remove a lot of this material here and just kind of make that capstone indent up in there, or we could kind of bisect it maybe and maybe do like a deep V kind of down this direction. Just add a little more interest to that. It's kind of looking like a Norse kind of horse head kind of thing going on here, but I just want to do something to the front. Not exactly sure what yet. And that's a lot of my process right there. That kind of sums it up is I don't know what I'm doing. I just kind of figure it out. So I'm thinking maybe kind of bisect down this way and make these almost like ears, or give some more kind of interest to the kind of inside here of that, and we'll see what we get. All right, so quick little update here. um, I did bisect it down, then I started to say, hey, this looks like a remember the Norse theme from earlier? It kind of looks like the kind of masthead on the ship, uh Viking longboat, something like that. So bisected it, and we're just going to have two dragons here. Um, I'm going to attempt to use a chisel to kind of scale or kind of peck some scales into the bottom, the base here, and then see if I can polish up the shape some. And then we'll get to the finishing parts, how to get the color back, how to kind of adjust the coloring a little bit to your taste, so you can rough it back up a little bit if you want it to be more of a white or dull, or you can add some wax, which I'll show you guys how to do later. And all right, I'll get back to pecking away at this thing. All right, so about an eternity and a half later, we've got our two kind of Viking longboat. I don't know if you guys can see that. Dragons or horses kind of coming out of the waves here, where those could be scales. So now that I have most of most of the shaping done, um, you can come in, you can add fine detail. If I wanted an eyeball there, I could kind of put this in and twist. If I wanted to add more scaling, certainly could. I can smooth out some of these rough spots from the chisel. But the next stage is going to be sanding and deciding kind of how rough of a finish you want on this. I figure since this is a long boat, we're going to go with a pretty rough finish on it. So I'm going to try and keep these sides flat as if they were planed out of wood. And the inside I might hit a little bit. I'm going to maybe smooth up their necks just slightly. So just find the roughest grit sandpaper you can. I prefer to do this at the sink, but for this I'm probably just going to do it out here. Um, so if you get some wet sandpaper, doing it at the sink is going to cut down on your dust tremendously. It'll also let you see that color shining through as the water fills in all these gaps. It'll let you see that transition from the red up to that kind of yellowy pale beige that we had for the top of the heads here. So yeah, I'm just going to find some rough grit sandpaper. Um, Looks like I got some 220 here. And then you're just going to hit that. You can wrap it around your finger. You can wrap it around a sanding block. And you can see how much dust is coming off of this. So that's why I like to do it at the sink. And you also want to be careful that you're not removing that detail that you work so hard to put in. So I'm not going to go too hard over these scales or anything like that. I am just going to try and smooth up some on the back of the necks and inside where it was kind of hard to get the chisel to get that stuff to separate. So I'm going to polish these up like that. And then you can hit it with a couple other finer grits of sandpaper. So 220, even as low as 80 grit, is going to be great for removing a lot of that stuff. And then depending on the shine that you want at the end, I go up to about 600 on my kind of the spots that I want to be the brightest. And then finally, we're going to put a coat of wax on this, and I'll show you guys how to do that once we're done with this. All right, and for this next part, you're going to want to get some wax. I don't even know where this came from. I think it's just some paraffin wax that I had around. You can use beeswax. You can take an old unscented candle and melt that down, or not melt that down, but and use that. And I've taken our piece of soapstone. I put it in the oven. Mine has a keep warm setting, which is probably about 200, 250 degrees. Leave it in there for about 10 minutes. And what you're going to do is when we pull it out, we're going to rub the wax on it. It's going to melt into all those little grooves and seal it up, and then we can buff it once it kind of cools down just a little bit. I'm telling you this part now because when you take it out of the oven, you have a limited time to get that to happen. It will cool fairly quickly. So you want to start with the thinnest parts because those will cool the quickest. So in our case, I'm going to start with that the head and the neck of our dragons or our longboat figureheads. And then we're going to move down to the thicker base. And then I'll show you some techniques after we get through with the kind of time sensitive part. If it does cool down too much, you can always just pop it back in the oven and wait for it to heat back up and do it again. And then, but usually I can get them all in one go. So I'm going to go grab that out of the oven and come right back. All right, so we got that here. We're going to take our wax and start putting it on there. This is fairly hot to hold, so just move it around your hand, put it down on a surface, kind of whatever you need to do. Grab it in a hot mitt, put a pair of gloves on, whatever works for you. But you're just going to rub that wax around on there. You can see how it's shining everything up nicely. And then once you're done with that, I'll show you some techniques on kind of finishing the surface to how you want it to be. Okay, so we have our very hot, not sure if I'm in frame, I don't have a viewfinder here, but we have our very hot masthead, figurehead, whatever you want to call it here, coated in wax now, so you can see all the colors come back through. And now finer details, like before I would send this out the door, give it to someone, anything like that. What I would do is if I want any spots to have a different texture to them, take that 220 grit sandpaper that we used earlier, and you just want to lightly scuff up the wax. And what you're going to do is you're going to completely change the coloring down there. And so if you really want to accentuate kind of those waveforms or scales or whatever it is that you spent time putting detail work into, if you want those to pop back out, just give them a little bit of a rough up there and they'll be a lot more visible in your finished product. Now, if you don't like it, this is still hot enough and has enough wax on it, you can just put another coat of wax on it, and or you can hit it with 400 and then 600 again to really smooth it down, and then put the wax back over it, and it'll fade right back out to the product that you had before. So just a couple little tips there for adding some kind of final polish or final details to it. And so the last thing we have left with this is just to get some glamour shots, and then I'm going to call this project done. I'll see you guys in the outro. Thank you. I want to thank you guys for watching. And if you want to support me further, you can buy my books, go to my Patreon, or just leave a comment, like, subscribe. Those things you've heard 100 times, but they actually do help grow channels like this and get this content out to more people. In the future, I'm going to try some new things with these videos. Like I said in the intro, we're going to move on to a little bit more advanced concepts for the crafting stuff, but also I want to try streaming some games, doing some live commentary, and maybe showing you guys my process for trying to improve at this beautiful game. And I'll leave you guys with what we made today. Thank you.